mobile phones. I know this is social media week, but hi, I'm Edic Navarro, one of the producers from Motion, the Creative Influence, and it is with great pleasure that I welcome you all here at the Social Media Week, one of the events at Social Media Week, hosted and curated by Motion. We have a very interesting topic this afternoon. It's all about social media and retail innovation. A lot has been said about social media and retail innovation and the retail experience. But that retail experience is no longer confined in physical stores. It has gone into different platforms, including online. So with all of these things happening in the New York Minute, how can you as a brand or as a brand ambassador or as a brand guardian maximize these innovations and translate these innovations not just into sales, but into creating brand followers or supporters? That's why Motion Retail has been created. So what is Motion Retail? With a decade long of curating brand experiences, Motion decided to gather a team of experts from the global retail industry and creative branding, and aptly call it Motion Retail, with one goal in mind: to be at service in designing your retail experience from street to digital. Before I call on our panelists for this afternoon, I would like to invite you to join our discussion on Twitter by following hashtag SMW Retail Innovation. We will also be streaming everything here, social media and retail innovation via Ustream. So, and after our presentation, we will have a Q&A discussion with everyone. So please join our discussion. Okay, for this afternoon, we have a team lead for Motion Retail based in Europe. She has a decade long of experience in visual merchandising for retail in the United States, Paris, Zurich, and here in Asia. She has a master's in digital technology and their applications in architectural, and you guess it right, retail design. Joining her is one of Motion's most respected producers who specializes in content curation, social media and creative branding, and a believer of digital innovation. Ladies and gentlemen, Yael Ifra and Hajar Manaf.
Hello. Hi, can you hear me? I'm a bit sick today, so I'm just trying to not speak out too loud because my voice might crack. Okay, so yeah. Actually, that's Yael and I'm Haja. I just thought I should make that clear. Yael is supposed to be speaking about these few slides.
So, hello, is this too loud for you? Because the mic was a bit too loud, the first mic. Is this okay? Okay, good. So, yes, we were just here to introduce Motion Retail. And as Edic so well presented, we are focusing our services on accompanying brands that need to create a seamless strategy from digital to brick and mortar stores. We saw this as a need in Singapore and Asia Pacific area, and we're really excited to be here today and start the discussion with you and start the discussion at Social Media Week. The way we've organized our products and services is in four categories, four focuses. The first one is retail events, and that's where all the event experience from Motion comes. They go from creative to actual implementation in Singapore, in Asia Pacific, and in Hong Kong. And we want to apply that to stores in the same area. The second thing that we do is we focus on visual merchandising services. I don't know how much of you in the room, can you just show me a hand, are really retail specific audiences? Okay. Does everybody know what visual merchandising is? Because sometimes it's a word that is not so clear. But it's really just the scenography of stores and how you put product together to sell better. And it's a combination of branding and your economic strategy on a particular collection. And that's one of the services that we offer. We work with a digital expert on this that's based out of Paris. They cover about 900 brands, including the top luxury brands today. And they have a beautiful software that does this very, very well and links the headquarters to each point of sale. Another service we do, and that's really what we're here to talk about today, is designing digital signatures and accompanying brands on bringing their retail experience into a coherent whole from the web-based to the hard retail. And the last service that we do is training and education. We have a lot of experience in training, visual merchandising training, as well as just general strategy, accompaniment, and management training on these particular issues. So that is what we do. So I'm going to pass it over to Haj, who's going to start and introduce this topic.
Yeah, so social media, because it's Social Media Week, I think it's already very apparent that social media plays a large role in our lives, and it has fundamentally altered the way we communicate with one another, the way we also interact with brands. And it also has changed the way brands would interact with their consumers and their target audience. And what that means is that you can never switch it on or switch it off. You know, it's always on. And before we go into how, how that is, we will go through the outline of what today is going to be about. So we'll talk about the influence of social media, what are the best practices that will entail, what is your digital signature. So what that digital signature really is how coherent or how digitally integrated you are as a brand into your physical experiences in your brick and mortar stores. And then in the end, we'll conclude and then have the Q&A discussion. So this was what I was talking about. That slide was misplaced. So it's anytime, any place, and anywhere. It doesn't necessarily have to be in a physical store. You can be online, you can be on your tablet, you can be on your iPhone. You don't really necessarily need to also be in a prescribed duration number of hours. It's literally just on, you can't switch it off. So what that means is that with the ubiquity of social media, with the multi-fragmented experiences that your consumer have with all the digital savviness that everyone is, it means that your consumer has evolved. We all know this. Your consumer expects that from you as a brand. It expects your brand to be able to assimilate the experience that you want your brand to have in every touch point of their journey. Because it's no longer about when that retail transaction happens, it's actually about what's happening before and what's happening after. Because everybody now is so connected and everyone can interact with each other really quickly and really easily. So the brands that are left behind, they always will be trailing behind, because when your consumer evolves, it expects you as a brand to evolve. And that only means retail success. So when you're there every step of the way together with your consumers, you can only expect your consumers to react to you and to listen to you and then to talk to you and converse with you. It's always constantly a conversation anyway. It's a relationship that you're building with the journey that the consumers are having. And all this just means that, brands now are pushed to be more digitally savvy, to be more digitally innovative in their retail stores, because let's face it, nobody wants the physical brick and mortar space to go away. There is this thing as retail therapy. It's different from being in your couch with your credit card, no queuing up with your pajamas on, buying something. That experience is different from stepping into a store where you know people are going to greet you, people are going to say hello to you, people are going to try to mix and match things for you according to your preferences. That experience is still needed to have with brands, but that experience cannot waver because people are expecting you to be on the ball. People are expecting you to say, okay, I like this brand, I want the brand to know me too. Excuse me. So let's look at the numbers that we've found from some research papers. So we know that 90% of purchases happen in real stores. However, more than half of the purchases are online influenced. So this means that people actually go online to look up about your products, about the prices, the details that they can find. What are the colors that I can find this blouse in? So that's the beginning of a relationship. That's already the beginning that you need to already step in and try to greet your customers. And then also with the visual culture in social media and with the advent of other social networking sites like Instagram and Pinterest, you can see how people actually like to see pictures, beautiful imageries, they like to be visual. And when it comes to Pinterest, everyone knows about how it's actually become like kind of like the hero social networking site when it comes to retail. Brands like Gucci and ASOS have amazing visual merchandising on their Pinterest, and that shows, it clearly shows the average retail spending on Pinterest is $169 as opposed to Twitter where you just have hashtags for discounts probably. But you can see if you trail behind, you will be left behind. So I mean, the thing and the amazing thing is social networking is so easy to get on. Joining that bandwagon is actually really just a click away. But what is difficult here is actually trying to get that one brand experience. So I think, or Motion Retail believes that brand experiences and having that one brand experience is the biggest challenge right now in the digital innovation sphere. Because you need to be cohesive in all of your retail platforms. You also need to be speaking the same language, having the same experience, whatever the touch points are, because your consumers are going to learn about your brand through so many entry points. You know, they can learn about your brand from the music that you endorse or the endorser that you have. So you can't really control that, but the challenge is really to have a cohesive one brand experience. So 86% of people would actually pay for better brand experiences. So this just means that as a brand, as a retailer, it gives you the bigger push, or it gives you the bigger potential for return of investment for that much effort that you put in, because people want that brand experience. I mean, if you think about Apple stores, I mean, people sometimes just go to Apple stores because they like the experience, and that's just it. And then they end up buying some things, you know. So to us, that's a big step, or for brands or retailers, that's actually a big sign for you to be more cohesive in your brand communication in terms of retail platforms and also being digitally savvy. Yeah, we'll talk about the unhappy version here.
This is one of the slides that summarizes a lot of the things that we look at. What we do is look at a lot of digital presence of brands, and then we turn around and we look at their stores. That's the world I come from. And Singapore is a great laboratory for looking at stores, obviously. And when you look at this, you see that there's something that what we call in Motion Retail an unhappy inversion of digital presence as you go from social media to real stores. So it's very clear that brands today, retail brands, have had to become digitally savvy in social media. Everyone has had to get on this bandwagon, as Hajar speaks about. And that's where you see a lot of copycatting and some innovation going on. Obviously, there's some brand leaders that are pulling the trends on how to do this well. These are brands you always hear, like Burberry. We always hear about how well Burberry does as a social media guru in terms of branding. But there's many more that are following in their footsteps and also innovating next to that. So there's a lot of digital innovation going on at the social media sector. But ironically, when you go to the e-commerce site of that same brand, it's not that innovative. Very few brands are actually doing something really interesting on their e-commerce sites. And that's kind of ironic because that's the main source of income today. That's the growing business of retail, is e-commerce. And we just find it really interesting that that's already a weak point. It seems as though brands are fairly exhausting their efforts on the social media and they haven't really applied it on the e-commerce side. And when you go to the real store, you lose that digital innovation even more. And that's why we call this an inversion, because when we talk about a unified brand experience, and when we talk about today's consumers, certainly consumers are expecting that social media, digital, innovative experience all the way through that shopping experience. And they don't just want it on the internet anymore, and they don't just want it on Facebook. So this we see as a real potential for brands to develop. We think it's really good news because it means there's tons of room to differentiate yourself. We find in general that most stores look a lot alike. I might say something that shocks some people in the crowd, but it's very hard to tell a difference between a Zara store and a Chanel store. The visual merchandising techniques today in store are the same. Whether you go to a JCPenney, or you go to a Marks and Spencer's, or you go to a Zara, or you go to a Louis Vuitton store, it's the same thing. We have face-outs and mannequins and sometimes a digital billboard, but it's become, the culture of visual merchandising in the last 10 years has just become ubiquitous everywhere. And there's not that much innovation going on. So we're really excited about this because today there's a whole new ballpark to play in. And the consumer is definitely ready for that.
Hi, okay. So this is the part where I get very excited about because it talks about what is the experience that you like going to a store. It's different for different people. Some people go into a store for leisure, for therapy. Some people, they know what they want to get. I just want to get shoes in size 40 and that's it. So what is the difference? Then how does digital innovation really differentiate a store that's innovative in that sense and just your normal physical, like what Yael is saying, Marks and Spencer's and Zara? So the thing I like about going into a physical store, besides being a lady, is the fact that I like the experience. I like to see pretty things lined up, and I like the fabric and the colors, and I like how it's all pretty for me. It feels like as though I'm walking to a dollhouse of pretty things. So that's the experience that I want, that I need. And then the relationship. You know how it's very hard to find a salesperson in Singapore that you really like, but sometimes when you have found that person, you will want to speak only to that person. So I like that. So that's something that I feel that's lacking, and maybe digital innovation can help. Like for example, if that person has an app and that person already knows you, that's pretty good already. That person can go up to you and say, hi, I know you like that pair of shoes. You know what? I've kept that for you. That's something that I like. And the brand community. It's always nice when you go with friends and you all have the same kind of taste, you know? That's good. And then the moments. Celebrating the moments in a store. I know it sounds a bit cheesy and mushy, but the thing about it is that we're all humans and we like a physical experience. I mean, so when something is so easy and when something is very convenient, sometimes you feel like you don't have to work hard for it. Sorry. Yeah. Sometimes you feel like when you don't have to work hard for it, there is no sense of satisfaction. So the thing is, we all like a place to go to and we like a place to bond at. And a physical store just means, I don't know, it just gives a physical presence, a sense of tangibility to your brand, that your brand is there, and that there are people and consumers that are going to be always wanting to be engaged in that brand. I mean, it's the same thing. I keep talking about the Apple Store because every other city that I go to, I want to make sure I go to the Apple Store. You know, like Barcelona just had a new Apple Store. I want to go to the Apple Store simply because I think that kind of retail experience, they've really thought about it for you as the consumer, as the person who appreciates beautiful, aesthetic, sleek designs. That's why it's important to be in a physical store. And then we feel that with digital innovation, a lot can be enhanced, a lot can be peaked, and it's all just about taking the imagination one step further as retailers who really want to be a part of your brand experience. There you go, digital innovation. That's the missing one.
Okay, so I'm going to take over now, and we wanted this discussion. The first part is kind of a general discussion about social media and retail, but we wanted to take you down to something very concrete. And we're going to walk you through a store, and we're going to talk about best practices. We're not going to spend too much time, however, so we're going to scan a couple of things. But I thought it would be really interesting to start the discussion of what a store should be like, a real brick-and-mortar store, by looking at an app that has been on internet for a couple years now that's called Spotify. Has anybody heard about Spotify or is a user of Spotify? Yes. So So for those who don't know about Spotify, it's coming to Singapore, and I don't have any shares in Spotify, but I think I happen to find it a really wonderful application for music. It's going to be available in Singapore not too long from now, so you will benefit from this great application. So let me just walk you through the interface quickly. And the idea is, as we talk about Spotify, think about what that could mean for a real store. So basically, once you sign up, it's like Facebook. Once you sign up for Spotify, you become a user. And once I'm a user, I can start, did I say it was a music application? I did? Okay, good. So you can start looking for records or artists, and you can find, through the search, you can find all the different records or individual songs that you like. And with those songs, you can start making your own playlists. It's as easy as clicking and dragging, putting these things like a DJ into your own playlist. And you can make endless numbers of playlists, and you can have an endless number of songs in your playlist. So there's this whole idea of scale. Again, I'm just thinking back to the store, okay? This is all happening for free. So far, Spotify has not asked me anything. I don't have to buy anything to get this service. I have these playlists, and what happens is, once my playlists are created, the whole Spotify community all over the world can now look at my playlist and see if they like it. So I'm sharing. I'm immediately sharing with the Spotify community. And at the same point, over here is Facebook. I'm sharing with all my Facebook friends, or anybody that, anyone that I'm friends with, and they can know that I'm listening to this record, or I just updated my playlist. And so people can start following you. And of course, you can star song, etc. Another thing that happens in terms of curating, the user becomes a curator as well through the radio station. They have radio stations, and those radio stations are, this is where another example, back to the store. Spotify takes the digital data that you've compiled, so they know you like certain songs, that you've organized certain songs into certain groups, and they say to you, okay, with this information, with this data, I can propose to you now a radio station. So for each one of my playlists, I have a radio station available. And there Spotify brings up the first song that it feeds, it comes from the database, it analyzes what I like, and it proposes one record. And if I like, and it asks me, do you like this record or you don't like this record? So I'm listening to it. If I like it, I hit a thumbs up. And each time I hit a thumbs up or a thumbs down, the data gets recrunched. And so the radio station choices get refined. So again, back to the store, how can we take consumer data and be smarter about what we propose to the consumer? And how can that happen on the web, of course, but also in the store? So these are my stations, for example, and I can have jazz and classical, etc. So I can't wait for you to have Spotify in Singapore because it's lots of fun. This is another screenshot. This is when I land. When I open up Spotify, it knows what I like as music, so it always proposes to me new musics. So again, it's feeding from the data that I've already inputted, and also the people that I'm following, and it proposes other things. Here you get to see how Spotify makes money. For a free membership, I have to listen to advertising about every 3 songs. And if I turn off the volume during the advertising, Spotify stops playing. So I have to listen to the advertisement. And then, of course, here you see there's a Gucci ad on top of on the suggestions of the day. But for $10 a month, I can take a premium membership. And for $10 a month, here's what I get. I get no more ads. I get all my playlists available without internet connection. That means I no longer have to be on internet. I can be on the train and I can still have all my beautiful playlists I did. And I have all of those on mobile, on all my mobile devices. So for $10 a month, this curating that I've done becomes absolutely accessible. That's, I find, an incredible quality for that price. And that's something, back to the store, to really think about. What quality, what are we giving, what kind of product quality are we giving to the consumer, and at what price? Because some of these things we're offering today on the web, incredible quality for not a lot of money, actually. So if we just look at some key words, again, to think about the store, we have definitely a high usage of sensory. So in this case, we have audio and visual, and we know that the young generation, but also us, the more sensory experience we have in a store today, the better off we are. Okay, we're talking videos, we're talking light screens, we're talking music. One key word of Spotify would have to be freedom. So when a consumer walks into a store, well, what can he curate in your store? Right now, the relationship when a consumer walks into a store is very passive. He walks in, he looks around, and he's supposed to go to your product and figure out what he wants. Well, what would happen, I mean, obviously there's a freedom of choice there, but what would happen if somehow the product came to them? And how could that happen? If they pre-shop on an app, and that is linked to the in-store experience, for example. So that this notion of freedom is done more. There's also this question of what kind of service you get for free and what's affordable in the store. How do you empower the user, right? Spotify is all about, I'm the one doing everything. And lastly, how do you really celebrate this culture of sharing? Because that's really a wonderful part of Spotify. Is every time I upgrade my playlist, I know everybody that I know can find out about it. It's this potential of sharing that's incredibly strong, and that is really for me, the diamond of social media innovation. That has just transformed our society that we know, but also the way that we shop and consume. So we're just going to take a little moment here and zoom into a store, and we just pulled together some best practices, some very simple examples, there's many of them out there, of what's going on today in brick and mortar experiences. So the first thing that we want to just point out to you, and it's something that we do with our clients, is just breaking down the store into many different steps, because a store is just a sequence of events, a sequence of a scenography that's there to seduce the client and inspire the client so that they can hopefully buy and come back and really like your store and recommend your store. So these different events or these different places are each time a place where digital innovation can happen. And you can really, as a strategist, you can really decide where you're going to invest your money on digital innovation. This is a way for us to roll out a strategy with our clients of where they want to focus first in the first trimester or second trimester. So it's a way of understanding the space, but it's also a way of defining a strategy for brand innovation. So here are the zones. Pretty self-explanatory, and this is the path of the consumers. It's a completely random path. And then throughout this whole experience, of course, you have the product being displayed, and you have the staff. And this is something that is going to be completely transformed because of social media. People working in stores are going to have to become much smarter about what they do than just saying, hello, can I help you, and folding the t-shirts. It has to be a much more intelligent conversation because consumers are expecting your brand to know much more about them. So that's a whole area of development. What's interesting is you can take that same idea and talk about a website, e-commerce site, and you could ask yourself, well, what are the street and windows of my e-commerce site? And where are my windows and entrances? Where's my front door? And where's my cash area? How does that look? Besides just a basket and a checkout, click. Where do I lounge? What do I get to do? Where do I lounge on an e-commerce site? And what would I do? Would I listen to music? Would I upload my playlist? Would I share something with my friends at this place? And what are the fitting rooms like on an e-commerce site? Same thing, how is the product being displayed? And what's the staff relationship on an e-commerce site? So again, these relationships are the same when we talk about brick and mortar and e-commerce. Okay, so just a couple zooming in. If we just look at street and windows, we just pulled a couple examples of best practices. Again, there's so much out there and it's happening so fast. I don't know if you have a sense of this, but when we work in this field day in and day out, you really see how quickly this stuff goes. So we just pulled an animation that was projected. Have you seen this picture? Does anybody recognize this? This is Ralph Lauren 2 years ago, 2010, 3 years ago now, December. They kicked off a huge 4D animation in New York for Christmas time. And I think it was to make an anniversary of their brand. It's an incredible animation where the horses come out of the facade and the facade breaks open and you have mannequins in each one of those giant windows, which is the actual facade of the store. And there was music going on and there was perfume going on. So again, the sense is happening in the street. You see this a lot with Abercrombie & Fitch, where the street becomes a showroom for your brand. Another example, very digitally driven, is Louis Vuitton. This is the store in Shanghai. And that entire facade are LED lights that are programmable, that change all the time. You can keep the facade on to red or change it to black and white or have a message being projected on these lights. When I was there, it was just changing colors. It was shifting from all these different hues of colors. And the last image is an image from Paris I just took. And that's, it's really to talk about digital innovation and how inexpensive things are getting and how doable things are getting for all brands. This is a little store. They sell drones. It's a brand called Parrot. They do very sophisticated, very high and well-designed, what do you call it, headgear, to listen to music. And they've designed a drone, and Philip Stark designed this drone. And this drone is this little helicopter that you can control with your iPad or your mobile. And on that drone, there's a video camera. And I don't know how long the autonomy is, how far the autonomy is, but you can take this thing very far. And would you like to wager how much that thing costs? Anybody? How much do you think that retails for? 1,000? Anybody else? 400? It's 100 euros. For 100 euros, you get this thing. And that was striking to me. So what happened is I walked by the store, and the store is a beautiful thing. It's got all these objects, very well-designed objects. And there's this huge video on the wall. There's no window display. The window is a piece of glass, and you see right into the showroom. And all night long, you have this giant film of people using this drone. And I had to look at it. I couldn't figure out what it was, and then I figured out they were selling drones. And I thought, well, gee, that can't be right. You can't have a store with drones. That's really strange. Then I went on the website, and I saw what it cost, and I just thought that was amazing. And it's a really good example of how technology is getting so affordable. And that translates to our customers, our clients, to say, it's not just the big brands that do digital innovation. It's everybody today. You can't really say, well, it's too expensive. Only Burberry and Chanel can afford those strategies and implement these things. It's not true anymore. And it's not true for the consumer, and it's not true for brands. And the consumers are expecting this. So I put that up there. Sorry, that was a long explanation. If you do the same thing for just the area of the entrance and the windows, you can have the same thing. So we put up a picture of an interactive screen that people love to touch, etc. You could also link your mobile to that. So when you come in, the mobile would click into that screen. And you could get information about what you pre-shopped already. You could have kinetic walls that are responding to movement. So what would happen if, for example, the more flux